You were 8 years old at the doctor's office, and the doctor was using a word your mother didn't know. Your mother was looking at you. A small space had opened in the room where someone was supposed to translate, and you, 8 years old, stepped into it. You explained the word. You softened the part you knew would hurt her. You told the doctor she understood, even though you knew she didn't yet. You were not supposed to be doing any of this, but everyone in the room was relying on you, and you did it the way you had already been doing it for years. If you grew up translating for your parents, between two languages, between two cultures, between two adults who couldn't quite hear each other, between the inside of your home and the outside world, your psychology is shaped by something very specific. And it's not the way you've been told. The Translator Child did not just learn extra vocabulary. They built a cognitive and emotional skill set most adults never acquire, even by middle age, and they are now using it everywhere, often without realizing it. Here's the thing nobody talks about. Most kids grow up inside one room, one language, one culture, one emotional register. The grown-ups in their life mostly understand each other, mostly understand the outside world, mostly know how to fill out the forms, read the letters, talk to the doctors. The kid gets to be a kid inside that room, learning the rules of one world at the speed they're supposed to learn them. But translator children grew up between rooms. Maybe your parents spoke a different language than the school. Maybe one parent came from a culture the other one didn't fully understand. Maybe the adults in the house had radically different moods, and someone had to interpret one to the other. Maybe you were the bridge between a parent and the medical system, the school system, the immigration office, the bank. Whatever the shape of it, you learned very early that meaning didn't transfer automatically between two adults. Someone had to carry it across. And the someone, more often than not, was you. You didn't notice you were doing it. You just thought that was what kids were for. Researchers have been studying this pattern under several names. The most established term, language brokering, was first formally documented by sociolinguist Marjorie Fulstich-Orellana, whose research in the 2000s on children of immigrants found that brokering kids developed unusually advanced metalinguistic awareness, social cognition, and adult-grade negotiation skills, often before age 12. Other research expanded the pattern beyond language. Family therapists have long described what they call the family go-between, a child who translates not just words, but emotional states between adults who can't directly speak to each other. Combined, these research streams point to a single pattern. The translator child grew up in a position no kid is supposed to occupy, the position of the meaning maker between two parties who needed each other to understand. This is one of the clearest developmental sources of what this channel has been calling quiet intelligence, not the kind that tests well on a multiple-choice exam, the kind that reads two rooms at once and lands the right sentence in both. Picture this. You're 9. There is a phone call. Your mother is talking to the bank, and she's not getting anywhere, and her voice is starting to go tight at the edges. She covers the receiver and asks you to take over. You take the phone. You introduce yourself with a calm you don't actually feel. You speak in the voice of an adult, because the voice of a child won't be heard. You translate the bank's words back to your mother in a softer version. You watch her face for the moment her shoulders drop, because that's how you know you've done it correctly. The call ends. You hand the phone back. You go finish your homework. You are 9 years old, and you have just done a piece of professional negotiation, and nobody, including you, will register that this is unusual until you're in your 30s. But here's where it gets interesting. The years you spent moving meaning between two adults built one of the most underrated cognitive skills a person can have. You can rephrase. You can adjust register. You can take something that landed wrong in one room and re-land it correctly in another. As an adult, this shows up everywhere. In meetings, you naturally translate between the engineer and the executive. In families, you translate between two siblings who can't talk to each other. At work, you take a difficult message and find a version that the listener can actually receive. Most people can't do this. You've been doing it since you were small. But there's more going on than just translation. Translator children tend to develop unusually accurate dual perspective, the ability to hold two people's points of view in your head at once and treat both as real. This is the same cognitive skill that good mediators, judges, diplomats, and senior negotiators spend years training. You got it the long way, in your kitchen, by 10. Most adults never develop it because they have never had to. You couldn't avoid developing it. And here's the kicker. The translator child often grew into an adult with a quietly sophisticated sense of language itself. You probably notice when a word lands wrong. You probably feel, almost physically, when a translation has missed something. You can write or speak with unusual care because you know, from a young age, that small word choices change what the listener actually receives. This is a writer's instinct, an editor's instinct, a therapist's instinct. It came from the years you spent watching meaning get lost between people who needed it to land. And this shows up in ways you might not even notice. Translator children tend to be the people other people quietly rely on to explain things. The friend who can articulate what someone else was trying to say. The co-worker who reframes a misunderstanding. The partner who can describe what's actually happening in a hard conversation when both other people have lost the thread. You don't experience this as a skill. You experience it as just paying attention. But the people around you are getting something from you that they could not get on their own, and they have probably been getting it from you since long before they realized they needed it. Now let's be honest. The cost is real. Translator children often grew up missing parts of their own childhood because they were busy being the bridge between adults. They learned, very young, that they were valuable when they were useful, which is a wiring that does not go quietly into adulthood. The same skill that built the bridge can quietly keep them standing on it long after the bridge no longer needs to be there. That part is real, and naming it is the start of stepping off. But for the adults who learn to keep the skill and let some of the obligation go, here's what you actually carry. You have a cognitive and emotional skill set that most adults never even develop a vocabulary for. You can hold two perspectives at once. You can rephrase a difficult message into a receivable one. You can read tone and intent in real time. You can sit between two people and quietly help them understand each other. None of these are minor abilities. They are the abilities that build successful diplomats, therapists, writers, leaders, and the small set of people in any field whose presence makes hard conversations possible. The work isn't to stop translating. The work is to remember that you are also allowed to be one of the people in the conversation, not just the bridge between them. There's something quietly remarkable about people who grew up as the translator child. They walk through adulthood already fluent in a skill most people will never quite learn, the skill of moving meaning carefully between people who can't quite reach each other on their own. They've spent so much of their lives being the bridge that the bridging has become invisible to them and to almost everyone around them. If you have spent your life being the person who explains, the person who softens, the person who resays it, so the other person can actually hear it, this might be the moment to consider that what you've been doing was never just translating. It was a form of love your family didn't have a word for. And it is the part of you that, to this day, the rooms you walk into are quietly relying on. You're not just a good communicator. You're not just bilingual or bicultural. You're the translator child, all grown up, carrying a skill set most adults never had to build, and quietly making meaning land between people for as long as you can remember. This channel is called Silent Awareness because most of these things stay silent until somebody names them. If you want more of that, subscribing is the simplest way to support it, and it really does help us keep going. Hit the button before you click away.